Horror movies can really get under your skin, especially when they claim to be based on true events. However, most of the time, it's just a bunch of made up stories with cheap thrills and jump scares. But The Conjuring is different. It's based on a real life haunted house, and the authenticity is what sets it apart from other spooky movies. According to Andrea Perron, who lived in this haunted house and consulted on the film, Hollywood actually had to tone down the story to get an R rating from the Motion Picture Association of America. When the director, James Wan, asked if there was anything that they could possibly do to get it to a PG-13 rating, the MPAA simply replied, "No can do." There was just no way to make the story less scary. Hi folks, I'm Johnny and welcome to The Oddest. Let's have a wee look at the first Conjuring movie and the frightening story that inspired a blockbuster movie and subsequent franchise. Ghosts aren't real after all, right? Back in January 1971, Roger and Carolyn Perron thought that they'd found their dream home when they moved into the old Arnold estate in Harrisville, Rhode Island with their 5 daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy and April. The 14-bedroom house with its vast 200-acre property seemed like the perfect place to raise a family. But when the seller handed over the keys, he only gave them one piece of advice: leave the lights on. The Perron family didn't know what he meant at the time, but they would soon find out. The day the Perrons moved in, they had to battle through a snowstorm, and the eerie experiences began right away. Andrea Perron, who was only 12 at the time, remembers being handed a big box by her dad to take it into the kitchen. As she walked through the dining room, she saw a man dressed in a strange outfit, and she politely greeted him. But when she asked her mum who this man was, her mum said, "There's no one there." Her sisters confirmed that the man had simply vanished, setting the stage for even more bizarre events to come. At first, the strange occurrences were relatively minor, like brooms going missing and strange scraping sounds on the walls. But it didn't take long for things to escalate. Birds would repeatedly fly into the house and through the windows, and the clocks would always stop at 3:07 AM. Landline phones needed to be replaced frequently because they would lift off the cradle and then slam back into it once someone entered the room. The family also saw eerie blue lights travelling through the house. Cindy Perron, the second youngest daughter, witnessed the freezer door opening and closing repeatedly as items were thrown out of it. Almost every night she heard spirits telling her that 7 soldiers were buried in the walls. The paranormal activity was only getting worse. Imagine waking up to the sound of your dishwasher running, but no one's been there or turned it on, or hearing a toilet flush, but no one's used the bathroom. That's just the beginning of the Perron family's experience when they moved into their new home. Things only got worse from there. They would hear windows shattering, but there was never any glass to be found. And then there were the smells. A putrid stench of rotting flesh that would linger throughout the entire house. As if that wasn't enough, the ghosts would lift their beds in the early hours of the morning. And the worst part was when they tried to lure Nancy down into the cellar with their ghostly voices. The Perron daughters were so scared that they would stick together and move around the house in packs for safety. Andrea Perron would later remember,
"We traveled in numbers. We used the bathroom in multiples of 3 or more because there was an evil male presence in that house that frequently lurked. You couldn't use the bathroom without feeling like you were being watched. It was extremely uncomfortable."
The father of the house, Roger Perron, was in complete denial at first. He didn't believe in the paranormal, and he figured that there were rational explanations to all the things that were going on. Andrea would later go on to say that this was a control thing. Her dad just couldn't handle the fact that something could be happening in the family home and to his family that he wasn't in control of. Unbeknownst to Roger, his wife Carolyn was already far too affected. So it all started with Carolyn Perron being haunted by strange things like pinches and slaps. She even said that she felt like she was being poked by a needle that left her in searing pain. Her family was convinced that it was one of the ghosts living in the house. They called this ghost Bathsheba. Carolyn decided to investigate the history of their home, and it turned out that there were many deaths that occurred on that property. So the house was built in 1680 and originally belonged to the Richardson family, and then it was sold to several families, including the Arnolds, who gave the estate its name. It's said that Mrs. Arnold, who was part of the Arnold estate family, hung herself in the barn at the age of 93. There could have been other women who also committed suicide in the house by hanging. Additionally, there might have been a blacksmith shop on the property where 2 men froze to death. As for Bathsheba, there's a legend that she was accused of killing an infant under her care. The baby was found dead with a needle embedded at the base of its skull, which led to its death by convulsions. Although Bathsheba was exonerated from any wrongdoing, this really pissed off the local population and she was shunned and ridiculed as a result. It was rumoured that she was practising Satanism.
The spirit of Bathsheba perceived herself to be the mistress of the house, and she resented the competition my mother posed for that position.
As the Perron family observed Caroline's behaviour, they couldn't help but notice a gradual transformation taking place right before their eyes. Her fashion choices and use of outdated language were alarming. At first, they brushed it all off, thinking that it was just merely her fascination with history taking hold of her. However, as her condition worsened, their concern grew. That's when the Warrens, a duo of renowned paranormal investigators, arrived on their doorstep. Ed, a seasoned demonologist, and his wife Lorraine, a gifted medium, had been investigating the supernatural for decades. Interestingly, the two had met as teenagers and had been inseparable ever since, even tying the knot back in 1945. The Warrens stumbled upon the world of haunted houses by accident. After Ed left art school following World War II, the couple began selling his paintings to tourists on trips to New England. During their travels, Ed's curiosity was piqued by the tales of supposedly haunted locations, so he would often stop to sketch the houses from the road. Lorraine would then approach the homeowners and show them Ed's artwork, which sometimes led to an invitation inside. Through their interactions with these families, the Warrens developed a passion for investigating hauntings and providing assistance to those affected. In 1952, they established the New England Society for Psychical Research, which they used as a platform to investigate reported hauntings and help those who were experiencing supernatural occurrences. It was the night before Halloween in 1973 when the Warrens launched their investigation at the Arnold estate. Interestingly, the Perron family hadn't contacted the famous duo. They simply showed up at their doorstep. According to Andrea Perron, the family's eldest daughter, the Warrens learned about their plight because someone impersonating Caroline Perron had reached out to a young man and his paranormal investigation team at Rhode Island's college. The Warrens had caught wind of the situation and decided to take matters into their own hands. After spending months in the Perrons' home, the Warrens concluded that the best course of action was to perform a seance. Of course, that's always the answer, isn't it? Seance?
The seance was far more intense than anything they could have portrayed on film. It did not happen in the cellar. It happened in the dining room, and I knew from that moment evil existed. I will tell you that they brought a priest and a medium with them to the house, a full technical crew that were trying to film this event, and they inadvertently opened a door that they could not close. The medium invited the spirits in, and with them came something which attacked my mother. If she was possessed, it was for a brief period of time, but I saw it all with my own eyes, and what I know is that whatever attacked her was not of this world. It spoke through her in a language that does not exist on this planet. It levitated her in the chair that she was in, and within a split second, when it was done curling her body into a ball, you would have expected to hear bones breaking. It threw her into the adjacent parlor about 20 feet away in literally a split second. When my father tried to race to her side, Ed Warren grabbed his arm to stop him, and my father turned around and punched his lights out and took a man twice his size to the floor. Then he told the Warrens to pack up everything that they brought to our home that night, including the medium and the priest and the technical crew that was filming and the audio people, and told them to get the hell out and never come back.
Roger Perron made the difficult decision to halt the Warrens' investigation due to the emotional trauma that the seance had inflicted on his wife. Sadly, the effects of the event were witnessed by 4 of their 5 children, leaving a deep impact on the entire family. Despite the Warrens' experience and expertise in the field of paranormal activity, Roger could not bear to risk his wife's well-being any further. He was left with no choice but to request that the Warrens leave their home and discontinue this investigation. Thankfully, after all that drama, things were quiet in the Perron family home. Despite Roger's efforts to protect his wife, Andrea's mother continued to deteriorate in health. Unfortunately, due to financial instability, the family had no choice but to remain in the same home that had caused them so much pain. As time passed, the Perrons realised that they could not continue living in that house. So in 1980, after Andrea's mother declared that she would not survive another winter there, the family was forced to move out. They relocated to a newly built farm in Georgia, hoping to leave their painful pasts behind. But even in their new surroundings, they could not fully escape the trauma that the old Arnold estate had inflicted upon them. The Perrons' experiences had forever altered their lives, leaving a deep emotional scar that would continue to haunt them for years to come. Though they had moved on to a new chapter in their lives, the memories of their time in that cursed house would never truly fade away.
We thought that when we left the farm that we were leaving the spirits behind, and nothing could have been further from the truth. Profound attachments were formed and have persisted lifelong, because when you are touched by a spirit, it is a door that opens that can never be closed again. And you can turn your back on it, and you can pretend that it doesn't exist, but eventually, something is going to reach out and tap you on the shoulder and make its presence known.
Andrea revealed that the Warrens declared their investigation of the old Arnold estate to be the most intense, compelling and disturbing case they had ever encountered in their careers. The sheer magnitude of the haunting had left an indelible impression on the Warrens, who had seen and experienced many paranormal phenomena over the years. What? Oh, why is this video not over? Well, we need to talk about how true this true story really is. So what about the main spirit that possessed Carolyn, Bathsheba? Oof, what a nasty evil piece of work. Well, not so much. See, there was a woman called Bathsheba Sherman, but she never lived in that house. She never killed anyone, ever. She never murdered any children, and certainly never worshipped Satan. She was a normal, lovely family woman. She passed away peacefully at the age of 73 back in 1885. Her last act before she died was to make sure that she left enough to provide for her grandchildren's education. When the Conjuring movie was released in 2013, the owner of the house was a woman called Norma Sutcliffe. She was tormented, but not by ghosts, and certainly not by Bathsheba Sherman. She was hounded constantly by terrors of the human variety, movie fans. They had descended on her property and made her life a living hell. All hours of the day and night saw maniacal horror fans camping out in her garden. They invaded the barn on her property and were even sticking cameras and phones through the windows. Clearly, the woman was angry. So much so that she sued Warner Brothers. But hey, maybe the house was haunted when the Perrons lived there. Maybe whatever was haunting them left. This is boring, lads. The house is empty now. I'm bored. We could go somewhere else. Where do you want to go? Amityville?
Yes.
At least the Perron family got book deals and a lucrative movie deal out of the story, so it stands to reason that they would stick by it. Remember also, I said that the Warrens weren't contacted by the family. They just showed up unannounced. Apparently they did that a lot, until Big Roger smacked Ed Warren in the coupon. Coupon, by the way, is a Scottish slang word for face. So if someone says, "shut your coupon," that means, please be quiet. Another one would be, "hod your wheesht." Wheesht means quiet, hod meaning hold. Again, it means, please hold your quiet. Right, that's enough Scottish slang for one day, I think. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. It really does mean a lot to me. As you know, I'm just a wee channel trying to make good content for those that watch. If you've not already subscribed, please consider doing so. It would be nice to see this channel grow. Take care of yourselves out there. Tell someone you love them, and remember, keep smiling.